Hello, thank you for watching this video about my workshop Shifting Paradigm from Power to Control of Power. My name is Lelie and I'm very happy to share with you my thoughts about this subject. Before I start, I want to thank the organizers for organizing these Global Change Days. I'm really excited to be a part of this real interesting venture. In this workshop, I will tackle two main issues. Paradigm, which is a kind of grammar or structure in which we do our work, and paradox. I combine these in transforming organizational processes, and in the end, I hope I've shown you how the paradigm is shifting the use of paradoxes and how paradoxes are used to shift paradigm. This is the agenda I propose. We do a short check-in on paradox. I've prepared a poll. I've offered you the opportunity to choose about 12 paradoxical pairs. And then we'll have 3 rounds of breakout groups in which you can work with in pairs to people in the images of you of which belong to your chosen paradox, in a group of 4 where you reflect on the same paradoxical opposite and coming up with attributes of your image. And then we'll combine 2 groups of 4 into a group of 8 and have the opposition of the different images and see what comes from that. As I told you, this is experimental, so I'm very anxious, very curious what will happen in these 3 workshops. Then we'll have a short break, and after the break I will give you my reflections on the paradigm shift. The check-in and the sharing of results we'll do on the Jamboard, which we'll do next. I like to use the Google application Jamboard to share ideas and results in a session. So if you check on the link provided, Jamboard will open either in your browser or if you have installed the app in your app, and you will see this opening page, this welcome page. On the second page, I'm asking you to do a check-in and add your name and your current location. So you click on the small note. The different browsers and the different applications have different positions of this tool, and then a window will pop open where you can add your name and your current location, and then stick it on the board, and it will be seen by everybody. You can move it around, and every change is being seen by everybody. Sometimes it takes a few seconds. So if you happen to make a wrong decision or you're not satisfied with it, you can undo and everything will be undone. Here I give some examples of paradoxes. Many people think that paradoxes only exist in language, like the blue button which says the red button is false, and the red button which says the blue button is true. They point at each other, and every one of the buttons is true in a sense, but when combined, they create a paradoxical regression. But there are also visual paradoxes, like the ones created by Escher. There are musical paradoxes created by Bach, they called counterpoints, but also in taste, like ketchup. Ketchup is not only a paradoxical taste, it's also a paradoxical liquid. And in philosophy, we have the endless debate about things coming from heaven or earth. And as an exercise, I'm going to ask you which paradoxes do you know, and you can add them on the Jamboard. On page 4 of the Jamboard, you can add the paradoxes you're familiar with. If not, then just wait and see what happens. And we have an idea of the different paradoxes. Paradoxes are living in groups, and groups are living with paradoxes. It's an endless cycle of paradoxes. Smith and Burke, in their book Paradox of Group Life, come up with 12 different paradoxes which exist at the same time in a group. Living in groups is inherently paradoxical, and that means something like you can't live with them, nor can you live without them. You're always in a group or part of a group. And at the same time, you want to be unique. You want to be a part of a group. A paradox is a dynamic tension which is grounded in the coexistence of the opposites. We experience them as opposites like in and out, or up and down, or member or non-member, but they have to exist together. You cannot be a part of a group without a group, and you cannot be a part of a group without that group. A situation which is characterized by contradictory yet interrelated elements which seem logical in isolation and contradictory when appearing at the same time. And this idea of the same time hints at an important paradox. Time itself is a paradox. Time is the way nature prevents from everything happening at the same time. Smith and Burke show that we can see that there are 12 different paradoxes in groups working at the same time. They appear in three groups of four, and I took the liberty of combining them in pairs of two. In any situation we try to solve, we tend to move from one paradoxical pair of opposites to another pair of opposites. So in a way, I like to say, paradoxes absorb paradoxes. I've made this list of paradoxes, and I'm going to ask you to choose one using the questionnaire I've prepared. Authority and brotherhood, boundaries and equality, courage and safety, creativity and tradition, dependency and freedom, disclosure versus diversity, intimacy versus debate or discussion, identity versus solidarity, individuality versus the collective, involvement versus opposition, regress versus participation, and trust versus survival and growth. If you haven't done yet, please choose a paradox. Okay, we are now going to work in breakout rooms of two people, and you've got 10 minutes. We've got odd numbered groups 1, 3, 5, 7, and even number groups 2, 4, 6, 8. And the odd numbered group are going to find or draw or select an image that symbolizes the first element of the chosen paradox. The even groups find or invent or draw or select an image that for them symbolizes the second element. Both of you can select an image. You can then have a discussion and choose both of them or neither of them and create a new one, or you merge. Just after 10 minutes, I would like you to have one or two images symbolizing your part of the paradox. Thank you for creating or drawing or selecting an image with your part of the paradox. We're now going to merge two odd groups and two even groups into a group of four. So in every group, you will have an image which is related to the same paradox. I'm going to ask you to compare your images. What characteristics, what qualities or attribute do you perceive in one image? What characteristics, qualities and attributes do you perceive in the other image or images? What do they have in common? And then you make a list of the things you noticed they have in common. So thanks again. Um, I ask you to make an image with one of the pairs of opposites of the paradox. Then I asked you to combine your images in same groups. And now we're going to the third stage, in which we're going to ask you to team up with an odd and an even group into a group of 8 people and have a conversation. The odd group present their images, the even group present their images, and then I'm going to ask you to give each other feedback on the images and the attributes in use. In the end, I'm going to ask you what insights do emerge from these paradoxical opposites and working with the images associated with it. So thank you again. I'm going now ask you to reflect on what you've learned about the feedback in your images about the paradoxes. What do you want to remember? What do you want to use or apply? What insights were very helpful or were interesting and you want to explore more? What could you do to facilitate to transform people you're working with? Write your reflections down for yourself and you share them only if you want. After you've done that, we will have a short break. So have a 15-minute break. Get a cup of coffee or tea, glass of water, walk outside, go outside, think of somebody else, something else. If you want, please take time to share your images and attributes or thoughts on the Jamboard. It's still open. So I'll give you my reflections on the paradigm shift, which has to do with the role of paradoxes in groups. The current paradigm is based on controlling the paradoxical tensions in a group. As a manager, as a leader, as an organizer, we sense the different parts of a paradox, to be connected or to be disconnected, to be part of group, to be a part of a group, to individuality or to belong to the collective, to be creative or just to follow the lead. And we tend to use the control, the tensions. So we all have to move in one direction. It's one or the other. Paradigm shift consists of trusting the participants of a group to control their tensions. As I did in this workshop, I didn't try to control any of the issues or what was being said in the group. I trusted you to find what you need in a group while dealing with this situation. I want to notice two things. One of the things is that I make a distinction between the word the group as an object, which is part of the current paradigm of controlling a group, and the participants of a group, in which I state the relationship between the members of a group. So part of the paradigm shift is shifting the attention of the listener or the participant. When you use a noun for a group, you're in the control paradigm. When you use the relationship between the members of a group, you're in the different paradigm. It's also important to notice that the paradigm shift doesn't make the first one obsolete. I've studied physics, and I also always say quantum mechanics exists next to classical mechanics. Classical mechanics didn't become obsolete, it became enriched. It's the same with the control paradigm. It's not wrong, it's just the way we use it can be counterproductive. Whenever you notice that trying to control the tensions in a group or in yourself doesn't work, shift your attention to the other part. Try to create a balance between the tensions of the coexisting opposites. Change itself is also a paradox. Change happens continuously, all the time. Everything changes, pantare. But these are changes which happen externally. Transformation, this is the word I use, happens inside people. You can change the position of furniture, as you can change the position of people. But it doesn't mean that a transformation happens. My central paradox of change and transformation is that solving a paradoxical situation inhibits the transformation. When you try to change a situation by giving attention to only one part of a paradox, you inhibit the transformation. You cannot solve a paradox. A, a paradox will only give rise to another paradox. This is why I presented the paradoxes in pairs of paradoxes. We shift from one paradox, from individuality, for instance, into the paradox of depending on a group. We shift from authority to setting rules. So the, there doesn't change anything when we try to solve a paradoxical situation. You can change a situation, but you cannot change human beings by changing the position relative to each other. They can only change themselves. This is what I call transformation. And human beings can transform themselves, and this is the paradox, while not changing the situation. The situation remains the same, but the human beings have been transformed. So the shifting of the paradigm is to transcend the paradox, to apply change by people transforming people. This is the facilitative way of implementing change, by asking people to change in the way they want to have them control the situation. They can change themselves and, if they wish, the situation. This is the third and last of my reflections. Leadership uses the paradoxical tensions to guide groups of people. You don't ignore the paradox, nor do you suppress the paradox. This is what makes leadership so difficult. I end with a quote. Paradoxes pose equally important contradictory demands on leaders' attention, time, and energy. To promote unity and to value diversity, to engage in both dialogue and confrontation with the same agency. Sonia Ospinia, in Paradox and Collaboration in Coalition Work, noticed that coalition leaders approach paradoxes by transcending them rather than confronting or ignoring them. This is the paradigm shift we're aiming for. Thank you for your attention. I hope you enjoyed this workshop and the presentation. I know I did. I learned a lot of it. If you have any questions or remarks, don't hesitate to send me an email at janlelie@mindedwork.nl. And if you want to make a donation, please consider my GoFundMe project. I believe in direct action and I'm supporting a project supporting orphans and widows in Uganda. Uh, as you see in the picture, they're building a chicken coop, a house for chickens, so they can have eggs uh, for the children which are suffering from HIV, but also to sell and make a living. Thank you again for your attention.